this small session. Right. So as I was saying, I will let me share my screen. Yeah. So it's a small kind of introduction. It's been a long time since we have been doing. We started doing Jagriti in, or rather, that time it was called with a slightly different name. But this program we started doing in 2002. And I've been since then doing every year 2-3 batches. So yeah, this is the 59th batch that is coming up. So it's been many, you can say many people who have been through it, some whatever, 3,000-4,000 people who have been through this whole program. And yeah, it's always very interesting for me to do some kind of an orientation because it's let's say it's challenging because how do I say something which is more experiential? How do we talk about something which is more experiential? So anyway, I will do my small attempt in trying to make the experiential here so that you get some flavor of what Jagriti could be. I'm not saying is. Primarily, Jagriti is all about opening more windows. That is how we like to talk about Jagriti because it's not like a program which will tell you what to do with your child or how to parent or how to even parent better or whatever. We don't know all of those things. So people who want better parenting or more effective parenting, I don't know, that's not the right place. But if you want a program where you can understand your child better and understand yourself as parent better, and then you can use that understanding in many different ways. That's the whole idea of the program, because I don't think, specific tools and techniques work. So we typically don't work out of tools and techniques. We work out of understanding. And out of that understanding, once we understand that, the how part, how you actually work with yourself or with your children or with your spouse in terms of your children, that all will come out of you. So that's why we say Jagriti is, that's why the name Jagriti. It's more of awakening or realizing that, oh, there are many other ways to look at learning, children, parenting, and so on. Yeah. Right. So also, I must add that a lot of the content that we have, we kind of explore here has actually come through because of children, because of us working with children. So it isn't like, this is not rocket science, but when we have observed children, interacted with children, and obviously learned a lot from many other people. But so a lot of it is coming from children. So yeah, that's how we look at this whole program. Okay, so very quickly, I will put up, there's a small, let's say, situation. The situation is for people who have also just joined in, if anybody's just joined in now, the situation is that your child, and you can assume any age, whatever you want to, has just used an abusive word. The child could be 3 years, 8 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15, 16 years, 20 years, irrespective. You can assume any age. Now, that is what the child has done. So I want to know what would be your response. Just the response, not so child could have said it in whichever form or way. It's up to your imagination, obviously. So go ahead and you can type in chat or you can come on mic. Any which way you can share. What would be your response? Yeah, I hope the situation is clear. Yeah, and if your current child is very small, that's okay. You can assume any age that age child has just used an abusive word. So this is how I will respond. Yeah. Please go ahead and share.
I think if it was me, I would ignore at that moment, but later on talk about it.
And when you say talk, what would you say?
Like why it is not good to use such words.
Okay. Sure. Okay. EMP is saying explain the meaning and usage and tell them not to use. Okay.
And I think this is more applicable for kids like around the age of 7 to 8, because if someone has already been beyond 12th standard, they would themselves understand.
Yeah, but still you will have some response. Let's say, even if somebody is 17 years old or 20 years old and uses this word, whatever is you may be your response.
I think at that age I would ignore it.
Sure. Okay. Others who have joined in, whatever is your. Yeah. So we are talking about a situation where the child has used an abusive word. Others in the call, Deepmala, either, I think, whoever is not responding. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. Anybody else? You will go with number 2, which means you will give your view that it's not okay. Is that what you mean, Sridhar?
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah, you said you will go with number 2.
why? Yeah, why it's not okay?
Okay.
I'll give a view. Yeah.
Give your view. Okay. Okay, that's okay. So that's just what I obviously the idea isn't that. So there are some responses that we have here, and the first thing that I want to kind of reassure everybody or assure everybody that none of these are wrong or right. Right? These are just our let's say responses, right? Whichever way we think, and they are absolutely fine. Yeah. Now, sometimes we respond as if things need to be changed, things need to be fixed, things need to be corrected, things need to be, taken care, and all of that is absolutely fine. Interesting is also to see, hey, if we want to look beyond the obvious, if we want to look beyond what is that we see as happening, and do we want to understand? Not know. Knowing is different. Understanding is different. I'm assuming that way. Knowing is knowing, okay, where the child picked this word from or whatever. But understanding is a whole lot. For example, what the child could be feeling, what the child could be thinking, what the child wants to convey, what kind of images the child has of this word, or people using this word, or what could be some kind of what's the motivation for the child to use this particular word? What's the intention? What's the child's driving at in this particular case? With what belief system the child is operating from? How does the child look at the world, the words? Because the child is saying in our presence, what is making him share that with us, and so on. I'm just sharing few thoughts. But the idea is that if we can dwell into understanding the child, then it's not so much about fixing something or thinking of it as a problem and then trying to solve it. But maybe the understanding itself would be amazing, as in would itself lead to a whole lot of, let's say, perspective into how, forget how I respond, but how I look at my child and how I look at myself and how I look at this world and so on. Maybe there is no problem. Maybe nothing needs to be done. Maybe the child understands the word, or maybe even if the child doesn't understand, he's just using it or whatever. The point is that whole idea is to try and understand the child. Sometimes I think a lot of us think that the child is like a Rubik's Cube. We kind of turn things around and get all the greens on one side and all the reds on one side and all the blues on one side. But I don't think parenting is like that, at least not to us. Forget parenting, even working with children or any which way. Children or human beings aren't like that. We aren't like Rubik's Cube, which we can, turn and twist and get everybody to do all the right things in all the right ways. Otherwise, we would ourselves be perfect. But it's more of accepting and understanding each of these colors that the child is reflecting right now. And the child will himself constantly evolve. So this Rubik's Cube is the child, and he or she is dynamic. He's constantly changing, constantly rotating himself or herself. And it's much more beautiful to, stand back and observe where is which color the child is showing and how and why and where and so on. In some ways, how possibly the child is responding emotionally. How does the child's emotions work? Because we all are very emotional. We all feel a whole lot of different feelings throughout our day. Just then when the child used an abusive word, we felt something. Or the child may be having a certain image about himself, or we could be having an image about the child. So are we understanding those, or are we even thinking about, hey, where is the child coming from, or where am I coming from? What is my motivation to, let's say, instruct the child or say this is not okay, or scold the child, or even ignore the child? What is my motivation? Yeah, just an understanding of that. Or it could be, what are my beliefs about, let's say, abusive language, about children using abusive language, about children's company, and so on. There can be so many things. And also, what are the child's beliefs? Where has he formed these beliefs? Even a belief about that, oh, it's cool to use this particular word. Or if we can widen the canvas much more and say, hey, how do we empower the child to understand language, understand this world, understand people, understand communication, understand everything? How do we do that? I'm not saying we do all of that, but how do we get the child to understand that? And so on. I mean, we can go on, especially creativity. How do we invite the child to use his creativity or her creativity, not to create some artwork, but to create wisdom, which is finally what is going to lead the child to live his or her life. Can wisdom itself be creative? Or rather, is it already creative? Or can we get the child to develop certain habits of mind which will help the child? And which ones will the child develop, and how will the child develop? I mean, I can go on. So that is what the Jagriti tries to do. It doesn't try to say that this is wrong, right? But let's see how we can understand the child in so many different ways. Even when we think in terms of behavior, we start thinking not just about the child's behavior, but about, hey, how am I behaving? And how is that reflecting? And how can I behave differently so that I can understand the child? Or whether it's, let's say, even the topics of sexuality, for example, or relationships, even these kind of things which aren't really, let's say, talked about. How do we work with those? How do we help children grow as more, I would say, give them a space to grow as healthier human beings, to understand themselves. By healthier, I don't mean physical health only. It could be mental, sexual, social, all kinds of health. And not through some formulas, not through some gyans. And nothing wrong with the gyan, but first by understanding, and then we can see what gyan happens. Yeah, so I was just using your responses to show that, hey, we can go much wider, much deeper, and cover many more aspects, and see how the child evolves. So let me pause here. Any thoughts? Any questions? Or was I like tangential somewhere else? What is going on in your mind right now? Yep, anything that's now that I gave a little running commentary of how we can look at anything for that matter. For any age. Maybe whatever I said isn't making much sense. Oh, you're trying to grapple with, okay, so what all it leads to. Yeah, but you'll have to say something. It works like that. The whole Jagriti is very interactive. You have to say, and then we'll build on that. It doesn't come from us. It has to come from you. We call it ring the bell. You have to ring the bell, and then the responses start coming from everywhere, not just from me, from others. Yeah, any thoughts? Okay, Apana is saying connect with my inner child before connecting with my kids. Sure, yeah, you can connect with yourself. As I would say, it's a dynamic process, Aparna. It's not just that we are connecting with ourselves, we are constantly doing that. And we are at the same time connecting with children. And sometimes it's the other way around. Children help us connect with ourselves, right? It's not even, it's not one way or the other. It's a whole dynamic thing. So it keeps moving. Yeah. The interesting thing is that when we have many such windows, if I am not feeling connection through one window, then I can use another window. So just to give you an example, if in this situation, suppose I give an instruction and it doesn't go well with the child, I can think, oh, so the instruction isn't working. So let me see which other window I can use. Maybe I can look at empowering him or her to think, or maybe I can check his or her feelings, or maybe I can explore beliefs. So now I'm connecting the child through some other window, not the window of, let's say, instruction, but the window of, let's say, feelings. And that can be interesting. Yeah, so that's how the whole thing works.
So I have one question about it. Like when kids at a particular age start interacting more with their friends, like best friends, they stop interacting or limit interaction with parents. So even if you are talking about them different feelings, how do you still keep on maintaining that dynamics that you have that conversation with your kid and they just don't treat you like only instructions are coming from you?
Yeah. So we'll explore that also. But more importantly, it is not that when they start interacting with the world, they stop or they reduce the interaction, but let's say the style or the context and the quality of interactions change. And in that sense, we have to change. So we can't be with the child the same way the child was, let's say, when the child is 4 years, we can't treat the child when he's 8 years the same way, or the 12 years when how he was 8 years. So we have to evolve as parents, not on a year basis, but maybe on a day basis. I would say how the child was yesterday is not how the child is today. So let me connect to him how he is or she is today. And that's not very difficult because we are trying to first understand. And if you are trying to understand, and we know understanding is dynamic, because how I understood you yesterday would be different of how you are today. So I have to understand you afresh today. So it's a dynamic understanding as much as we change. Anyway, so yeah, that's part of the whole deal. So so that is where again different windows help, because as I said, if we are not able to do it in one way, we can think of many other ways. If something is not working, and something which is not working today may work tomorrow, so that's okay. We don't have to reject anything. We just have to add more and more tools in our toolkit, or rather not even tools, views in our room is what we say. Okay, so I think I've given a very small but very integral aspect of Jagriti, that it's all about understanding, and it's all about understanding the child in many different ways. This was just an example situation. And then use that to see how we can be with them. Yeah. So I'll just play a small video, some participants sharing their views. So have a look at that, what they are saying. Wait just 1 minute. I think I've not shared the audio. Just need to share the audio.
I think everybody should join, and not just parents. Parenting will come later on. I think it's pitched as a parenting course, but it is much more than that. It's a self-discovery course. And if you know yourself, only then can you know your child. Because the child has come from you. He's a part of you.
I really like the fact that this whole thing is has a rational sort of basis, right? A rational experiential basis. So for me, that's a very interesting aspect of the course. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. I also like the process and all of that. So we'll see how we can sort of assist the whole process.
Yes.
But thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I think Jagriti was great. It was an eye-opener to the way I think. And I always thought parenting was feeding the child, giving bath, making the child ready for school, educating. But then Jagriti made me realize that it's preparing the child emotionally, mentally, sexually. And there's much more other than feeding and passing class 10th and college and getting a job. There's respecting the child and treating him as equal, and a lot of things which made me really think.
We keep on hearing this word empowerment in our MBA curriculum, but this is where I felt what empowerment is real, and I saw what it was working for themselves.
I feel empowered. No, whatever we thought, I introspected, thought in last 10 sessions is all sinking in. It's very slow. It's not like I have changed in a day, but it's a lot of thoughts going on. It's a lot of sinking. I'm not trying to experiment anything at home right now, but I think it's naturally, subconsciously, a few things are happening, like the feelings or like the beliefs, right? You kind of think that, oh, now I know about it. So you kind of think about it in your mind, and then you pause, and then you think what you want to do about it. So that's helping, and I think I have always been very excited being with my kids. Now I am super excited to be with them and see it in a whole different way now. So that's for me.
Yeah, so there is just a few participants sharing how they have looked at it. Yeah, so I've kind of 9:27. I have 1 more minute in my promised 28 minutes. So any questions you have? Yeah, the details are here. The details are also there on the website. But if you have any questions specific about the program, feel free to ask. You can ask now. You can ask in chat, or you can ask in voice. And if you think you don't have any questions and you are good, you can also say good night. As I said, I promised 28 minutes. It's already 9:28, so I will not take more.
So will there be recordings of it? Because few
Yeah,
days,
yeah,
like sometimes
it's-
it is
yeah.
coinciding with meetings.
Sure. It's saying there right on the slide if you see recordings on YT,
Okay.
yeah, YouTube. Yeah.
So if we have any like follow-up question or regarding any previous session.
Oh, yeah, again, the interactions so there's a WhatsApp group, and actually it's these sessions are only supposed to be a very small, more like a stimulus. I personally think the real work happens in, first of all, homes, because you try out things. This is not a theory program. This is a totally experiential program. Unless you try out, do things, it's of no use, according to me, according to us. So you try out things and then you bring and share it in the WhatsApp group. So the WhatsApp group is very important. In fact, I would say it's more important than the session. The session only stimulates. The WhatsApp group is where you kind of start digesting the whole thing. So that's the eating happens in the session, the digestion happens both by doing it, by exploring, experimenting it, discussing it with your spouse, even neighbors, I don't know, whoever you discuss it with, and especially in the group with the other participants. So that's a very important part. So we look forward to a lot of interactions in the group, yeah. And the group stays forever, as in you can go back and check the previous interactions. We share at least minimum one post every day, so you can connect with those. Those are also saved, as well as all the recordings are saved for future also, as in we have recordings of the previous, whatever, almost 10 years, because we have been doing this online almost from 2012. So it's been almost, 11 years now since we have been doing it online. But yeah, the recordings are only for that batch people. So it's not like they're not used otherwise. Okay, so we can maybe pause here. You got some idea about it. And yeah, thank you. And if you are registering, the link is there. It's also there on the website. You can do that, or you can WhatsApp me if you need any help on that. Yeah, thank you and good night.